My best friend's girlfriend threatened to break up with him if he didn't agree to an open relationship, and now she's courting me. I still can't believe what just happened. My best friend Jake just called me, voice shaking, telling me his girlfriend, Lisa, gave him an ultimatum. Either he agrees to an open relationship or she's breaking up with him. And the worst part? He agreed. Lisa has never really been my favorite person, but this is a new low. Even for her, Jake and I have been best friends since middle school. He's the kind of guy who would give you the shirt off his back, even if it left him standing in the cold. He's loyal to a fault, and that's exactly why Lisa has him wrapped around her finger. Lisa is, well, she's a piece of work. She's gorgeous, I'll give her that, and she knows exactly how to use it. When they first started dating about a year ago, Jake was completely smitten. He'd always talk about how lucky he was to be with someone like her. Meanwhile, all I could see was how she kept testing his limits. She never had a job, but somehow always had expensive things. Designer bags, jewelry, the newest phone. Jake bought her everything. Every paycheck, he'd spend on her first, himself second. And Lisa made sure to keep him in that cycle, acting like his generosity was the bare minimum. At tea first. I thought maybe Jake was just blind to it, but the truth is, he saw it. He just didn't care. He told me once, if spending money makes her happy, then it's worth it. But now, she wanted more than just his money. She wanted freedom. And she wanted him to be okay with it. A few weeks ago, Jake and I were grabbing burgers when he dropped the bombshell. So, Lisa thinks we should try an open relationship, he said, like he was telling me about the weather. I nearly choked on my drink. What? He shrugged, staring at his fries like they had the answers. She says monogamy is outdated, that we should be able to experience other people without it affecting our love. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dude, that's just her way of saying she wants to sleep with other guys without feeling guilty. Jake sighed. I told her no at first, but she said if I really loved her, I wouldn't try to control her. He rubbed his face. She said if I wasn't okay with it, we'd have to break up. I stared at him, waiting for him to tell me he dumped her, that he walked away from this insanity. Instead, he muttered, so. I said okay. I just sat there, stunned at first. Jake tried to pretend everything was fine. He acted like Lisa's demand wasn't eating him alive, like this was just some new modern relationship philosophy that he needed to get used to. He forced a smile whenever her name came up, but I could see through it. I knew my best friend, and I knew when he was lying. To me, and more importantly, to himself. I started seeing the changes almost immediately. Jake used to be one of the most easygoing guys I knew. He laughed a lot. He was always down for a late-night drive or a random adventure, and even when life threw him curveballs, he managed to stay optimistic. But after agreeing to Lisa's arrangement, he just seemed drained. It started with the way he looked. Dark circles under his eyes, like he wasn't sleeping. His text became dry, short responses when he used to send paragraphs. He stopped coming out as much, always giving some excuse about being busy with work or needing to rest. But I knew the real reason. He was waiting around for Lisa. She went out more and more, staying out late, sometimes not even coming home. At first, she kept it vague. Just dinner with some friends, she'd say. Then it became, I met someone interesting. Then it was, I'm staying at a friend's place tonight. Jake never asked for details. He didn't want to know. The worst part? He wasn't even seeing anyone else. It wasn't really an open relationship if only one person was taking advantage of it. Lisa didn't care, though. She'd just tell him he could if he wanted to. But he didn't want to. He wanted her. One night, I went over to his place unannounced. I had a bad feeling all day, and when I knocked, it took him way too long to answer. When he finally opened the door, he looked like hell. His hair was a mess, his eyes were bloodshot, and there was a half-empty bottle of whiskey on the coffee table. Dude, I said, stepping inside. What's going on? He just laughed, but there was no humor in it. What do you think? He slumped onto the couch, rubbing his face. She's out again. Told me not to wait up. I sat down across from him. Jake, this isn't working, man. You're not happy. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Yeah, well, at least I still have her, right? I stared at him, my chest tightening. This wasn't my best friend talking. This was a guy clinging to the last thread of a relationship that had already burned to ash. Jake, listen to me. You don't have her. She's using you. He didn't say anything, just picked up the whiskey bottle and took another swig. I leaned forward. You agreed to this because you were afraid of losing her. But man, she's already gone. His jaw tightened, and for a second, I thought he was going to snap at me. Instead, he let out a breath and muttered, I know. It was the first time he admitted it. The first time he let himself see it. But knowing something and doing something about it were two different things. And Jake wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet at this point. I had done everything I could to make Jake see the truth. I told him outright. I showed up for him when he was drowning in denial. But no matter what I said, he just kept making excuses for her, kept convincing himself that as long as he stuck around, she'd eventually realize he was all she needed. I hated seeing him like this. I hated Lisa for what she was doing to him. But what happened next made me hate her even more. It started with a text. She messaged me out of nowhere, just a casual, "Hey you," smiling face with smiling eyes. I stared at my phone for a second, confused. Lisa and I weren't friends. We barely talked outside of the time she was with Jake, and even then, our conversations were short and forced. I never liked her, and I was pretty sure she wasn't fond of me either, mostly because she knew I saw through her act. So why was she texting me like we were close? I ignored it, figuring maybe she meant to text someone else, or maybe she was just drunk. But then she messaged me again the next day, saying she felt like we didn't talk enough and that we should change that. That was when I knew something was off. I went straight to Jake and showed him the messages. I expected him to be pissed. I expected him to finally see what kind of person Lisa really was. But instead, he barely reacted. He just glanced at my phone and mumbled something about how she could do whatever she wanted because they had an open relationship. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told him this wasn't about their so-called open relationship. This was Lisa messing with him. And now, she was trying to get close to me. How is that okay? He just shrugged and ran a hand through his hair, saying he couldn't tell her what to do. That was it. That was all he had to say. I left his place that night feeling more frustrated than ever. It was like he had just given up. Like he didn't care what she did anymore, as long as she didn't leave him completely. But I wasn't going to let Lisa pull me into whatever game she was playing. The next time she texted me, I responded. I asked her why she was messaging me. She answered almost immediately, telling me she thought I was cute. I felt sick. This was my best friend's girlfriend. The girl he was willing to humiliate himself for just to keep in his life. And here she was, throwing herself at me. I knew I had to do something. And this time, I wasn't going to let Jake brush it off. I couldn't let this slide. Lisa was taking things too far, and if Jake wasn't going to stand up for himself, then I had to. I decided I'd call her out directly and make it crystal clear that I wasn't interested in whatever she was trying to pull. The next time she texted me, I didn't ignore it. I told her straight up that I wasn't playing along with whatever game she thought she was running. I asked her what she thought was going to happen here. Did she seriously think I'd betray Jake like that? She played dumb at first, acting like I was overreacting, saying she was just being friendly. But I wasn't stupid. I reminded her that she was the one who sent the winking emojis, the one who suddenly decided we didn't talk enough, the one calling me cute. I told her to cut the act. That's when she switched tactics. She started telling me how things between her and Jake weren't that great anymore. She said he wasn't giving her what she needed, that their relationship felt one-sided. I told her I didn't care. Whatever problems she and Jake had were between them. I wasn't going to be part of it. She got defensive then, telling me I was making a big deal out of nothing. She claimed she was just looking for someone to talk to, someone who understood her. I told her to find someone else. I thought that would be the end of it. But of course, Lisa wasn't the type to back down easily. She turned things around, accusing me of being judgmental, of trying to control Jake, just like everyone else. That's when I snapped. I told her she was full of it. I told her I'd watched Jake destroy himself, trying to keep her happy while she walked all over him. I told her she didn't love him. She loved what he did for her. She didn't respond to that. She just left me on read. For a second, I felt like I won. But the victory didn't last long. Because later that night, Jake called me, and he wasn't happy when my phone rang that night and I saw Jake's name on the screen. I knew exactly what was coming. I picked up, already bracing myself, but I wasn't prepared for just how angry he was. Before I could even say hello, he launched into it. He demanded to know why I had been talking to Lisa behind his back. His voice was sharp, more aggressive than I'd ever heard it. He kept saying she told him everything. How I had been rude to her, how I had accused her of things that weren't true, how I had made her cry, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I tried to cut him off, to explain, but he wasn't listening. Lisa had spun the whole situation around, making herself the victim, and now Jake was furious at me. I told him the truth. I told him Lisa had been the one to text me first. I told him she had been the one calling me cute, the one trying to get close to me. I asked him if he really thought I would ever go behind his back like that, but he wouldn't hear it. He just kept repeating that I had no right to interfere in their relationship, that I was trying to sabotage them, that I was jealous. That one almost made me laugh. Jealous? Of what? Of him? The guy sitting alone at home while his girlfriend ran around with other guys? The guy who was draining his bank account trying to keep her happy while she treated him like an afterthought. But I didn't laugh. Because I wasn't angry. I was disappointed that I told him I had been looking out for him, that I had always looked out for him. I reminded him of how miserable he had been ever since Lisa pulled this open relationship stunt. I told him I had tried to warn him from the start, but he never wanted to listen. Silence. For a moment, I thought I was getting through to him. But then he spoke, and his voice was cold. He said maybe I should stop worrying about his relationship and start worrying about myself. I knew what that meant. We were done. Lisa had won. Jake was choosing her over me, over years of friendship. And there was nothing I could do to stop it after that call. I didn't reach out to Jake again. What was the point? He had made his choice, and as much as it hurt, I couldn't force him to see what was right in front of him. Lisa had him completely under her control, and the more I tried to help, the more he saw me as the enemy. But I couldn't just sit back and watch him self-destruct. This wasn't just about a bad breakup waiting to happen. This was about Jake losing himself completely. The guy I grew up with, the one who was always so full of life, was now nothing more than a shell of himself, clinging to a relationship that was hollowed. So, here I am. I don't know what to do anymore. I've tried everything I can think of, and nothing has worked. So, Reddit, I need your help. How do I get through to someone who refuses to listen? How do I make my best friend see that the person he's fighting so hard to keep isn't worth it? Or do I just let him crash and burn on his own? Because right now, it feels like I've already lost him.